Why is there a guy getting molested by rabbits?
Sort of like jet lag without moving.
They look really short.
So are they mutant rabbits?
Yeah, something like that.
Or that.
Or exactly that.
This is the politically correct way to say something. This is reality.
Sounds good.
I like it so far.
Yeah. You guys are no fun.
Whenever you want to start the show, that's fine.
Wait, we're doing a show? Hello, everybody. I'm Jeff.
Hi, everyone. This is Mark.
And I am Mike, and this is What Do We Know?
I mean, do you have a union? Do they exist? Is there a
Union of
labor?
Ninjas.
Unions might exist.
Union of
not for my
ninjas.
Okay, actually, Japan has very weird work rules, and what I mean by rules is not necessarily laws, because there are laws in place where you're limited to how many hours you are supposed to work, and those working hours are paid hours. But there's a custom in Japan where you stay many hours past your work hours to show that you're dedicated to the job, but without extra pay. So what many teachers do, although they're sort of have the exact same schedule that I have, they stay at school 3 hours extra, which is really annoying.
A day?
A day. They stay many hours extra to prove how dedicated they are. And some, I understand. Some, they do activities with the students, like sports or whatever. But majority of them, they don't. They just sit at their desk and they don't accomplish shit. And while I would say most companies in the U.S., they like you to work the 8 hours, they're more concerned of what you accomplish. But you hear stories where you see teachers working on an Excel sheet, and they'll type shit up, and then they'll delete all of it, and then type the same shit up again. So they look like they're busy, but they don't accomplish anything. It boggles my mind. But it's the custom, I guess.
How late do you normally stay at work?
I stay at work until 5, and then I'm like, fuck you guys, I'm out of here. Which is really sad, because I'm the only person that gets to do that at work. So
why is that? Is that because you're the only foreigner?
Because I'm a foreigner under a different contract, and my company gets to decide when I get to leave, so they can't make me stay longer. Now, sometimes they would tell the company, well, it would be nice if Mark stays longer and helps out, but if it was one thing where they wanted me to help out with a sport or an activity, I might do it. But it's always sort of, will Mark stay longer and pretend to look busy for another hour so the other teachers don't feel bad? No, because the other teachers could leave too. It's their choice to be jackasses and stay a couple extra hours. Oh.
I don't blame you. I'd be out of there too.
I'd be out of there probably early if I was dealing with that. I'd be like, oh, class got about half an hour left. See you kids, let yourself out the door.
Last one out, shut off the lights. So you said you're at 5 different schools. Is that like a different school each day, or do you bounce around? Okay.
Different school each day. I did work last year at a place where I only taught at 3 different schools, and I had a half day at one school and a half day at another school. So sometimes I get bounced around, but right now it's set.
My wife is kind of in a program similar sounding to that. She got pretty lucky and was sort of placed in one school all the time, but there's a lot of people, she's kind of in the minority with that. There's a lot of people that'll teach at different schools, some even a couple different schools a day, depending on what they teach.
Is Carrie working for a company that sets her to different places, or?
Yes. She's actually employed with the Brighton School District where we live, but they kind of farm her out to different schools. Now she landed in a private school, and she's just there all the time. So she's.
Wait. The Board of Education is a state-run thing? Put her in a private school?
Yes, it's weird how it works. I'm not exactly sure. Well, I know teachers are kind of, at least here anyway, are sort of like freelance employees to some degree. Mm-hmm. So she was placed in this place, but I forget the name of the program it is, but like I said, she's part of her pay comes from the Brighton Community School District, and part of it comes from the school she works for, however that works out.
I don't know how that would work out tax dollars wise if...
I don't know either.
Because as far as I understand, private tax dollars can't be used for public schools. I mean, for private schools, isn't it?
Right, for private schools.
So she might be working illegally, is what you're saying, Mark.
I'm just saying that sounds like a situation where something's very wrong.
It's a pretty standard situation around here. In fact, Carrie knows a lot of people who are with this same program.
Right. Huh.
So I don't teach anything. And
no.
I don't either.
Well, even being a nurse, don't you have to help teach interns, nurses, or anything like that, Jeff?
Nurses. We don't have the same educational structure and hierarchy as the doctors do, for sure.
Yeah, because I watch Scrubs, and they have rounds and stuff. So
rounds and residents and interns, residents, and fellows, which are the medical doctors' jobs.
But I would assume that nurses have something similar.
No. You graduate from nursing school, you get your license, you're a nurse. There's no ifs, ands, or else about it. Or ifs, ands, or buts about it. You do definitely... You get into a job, you go through orientation and things like that, but I mean there's.
But I mean, you do medical
He's
procedures.
A doo-doo.
Yeah, you do medical procedures. You put in. I don't know exactly the medical terms, but you put in needles and shints and whatever into
shints. I put in shints on a regular basis.
Well, I mean,
I'm gonna put those shints in. Do you want some shints? I'll get you some shints.
You put shit into people's bodies, right?
we do. You learn to do it on the job. It's not a different classification, though. You're still a nurse at the same level as everybody else is. It's
so, but I mean, my assumption
probably
was
procedural things that differ from.
Yeah, you have to get I'm qualified, quote unquote, at my specific hospital in my emergency department to utilize an ultrasound to help me with ultrasound IV access. It's one of the special skills you can go to some classes and be qualified to do. I'm qualified to take care of LVADs, which not everybody is qualified to do. I had to take a class. But it doesn't change my title as a nurse. It just changes the patient I may be able to be assigned that day when I'm there. I mean, it's...
What I meant was, being a nurse, you wouldn't just go in and they'd just tell you, okay, do everything on the schedule. You would have someone show you a lot of things that you may have.
Honestly, if you're off of orientation and you have a patient who needs something that you've never dealt with before, it's still your responsibility, however you get it done. I'm not saying that people are going to hang you out to dry, but it's a big part of the nurses as well to say, when a doctor says, we're going to do this, get all this stuff ready. It's a big part of your own job to be look, I've never done this before. You need to help me out with this, or you need to walk me through what I need, and not just to... one of the problems with my profession is you get pushed around a lot by people higher than you because they, for one, assume that you know what you're doing, whether it's anything you've ever done before in your life, or two, just are arrogant jerks, because there's a lot of those as well. I've told a few doctors before they tried to do a procedure that, for one, I'd never even heard of, let alone done. It was just
the shints.
The shints. They told me to put in some shints.
It's
and I would be like, look, I've never done that before. I don't even know what type of equipment you would need. And their response was more like, well, you better find out because this needs to be done. To turn out that it's not even something we do at my hospital, that the equipment doesn't even exist on my unit because it's not something that ever gets done there because it's not really supposed to. But it's for the most part, the doctors you work with, that's like a small handful. For the most part, the doctors you work with will be like, oh, you've never done it before? Well, I know this nurse has. Let's get a hold of him or her, bring him in the room and have them like go through this so you'll know how to do it the next time. Like it's a big responsibility of your own. Granted, it's very difficult to do that because you're definitely, especially just off of orientation, when you're asked to do something that you don't know what it is, half your mind is trying to tell you, pretend you know what this is so you don't look like an idiot. Whereas as bad of a mentality as that is, that's a standard mentality because of the fact that you don't want to look dumb in front of your colleagues because you look dumb one time in front of your colleagues and they're going to look down on you. So you're going to try to pretend and then go figure it out on your own what it is. And if you don't or realize it's something that you should never be doing in the first place, then you also look like an idiot as well. It's I don't know, it's a very fine line of...
Sorry, the whole time I was thinking, there are things that, because you said there are things that you've never done before.
Correct.
The next time you go to your hospital, I swear to God, a doctor, for whatever reason, like, you gotta put a shit in this guy.
if someone
like,
tells me to put in a
Mark.
shit tomorrow while I'm at work, I'm gonna be like, you son of a
What
bitch.
does Mark that I do?
It's really funny because I've actually been back in the emergency department for the first time in the last couple of weeks for over 2 years. And I'll still hear, I was in the emergency department for over 2 years, and granted it's been a long time since I've been gone, and I've gone to a higher level acuity, like in theory, like to the ICU for a while. The doctors are asking me to do stuff, and I'm like, I have no idea what that is. It might be even standard emergency department stuff, but it coincidentally is nothing I ran into in the 2 years I was in the emergency department, or it's something new that I don't know what it is anymore. And I didn't get an orientation back to the emergency department because I'm qualified in everything there. So it's interesting to go back to an area because, especially doctors you worked with before, they saw you 2 years ago and they see you now. And in their mindset, there was no real time in between. They'll be like, oh, Jeff, we used to do a lot of procedures together, so go grab me this stuff. And I'm like, I have no idea what that is because that's new since I've been gone. Like it's something different. I'm sure you deal with that in your work as well, Mike, right? But I guess you're the
manager.
I don't know how much steel changes or aluminum.
I was going to say, no, our procedures are fairly standard. Every once in a while we'll implement some new procedure, but it's really, nothing major. I very rarely have to train anybody on anything. If we're teaching them, like, how to read up and interpret customer orders and things like that, but I almost never have to do that for anybody.
And I assume that you're in the position, like Jeff said, if you don't know anything, you want to pretend that you can fake it. So if someone tells you this needs to be done, you could tell your employees this needs to be done, and then they'll try to pretend to know what needs to be done.
Generally speaking, there's not a lot to it. So when you've been there as long as I have, there's not really anything that can pop up that I haven't dealt with it at a time or two before. And even if there is, there's a finite number of solutions to the problems that come up, so.
Isn't that more dangerous with the new employees though, is because there's so few differences that the people who are relatively new, if you ask them to do something that they're not necessarily comfortable with, they're going to pretend they're comfortable and pretend they know what they're doing because they don't want to look stupid?
Generally speaking, I think new people respect what's going on because when you talk about screwing up in our line of work, like you're talking about, something extremely heavy falling on your leg or something, so that kind of thing you tend to pay pretty close attention to. So
not like the medical field in the emergency department or the ICU or something, like is what you're saying. Okay, I got you.
Well,
but when you're staring at a 9,000-pound bundle of steel that could fall on you, you tend to respect it. And
so basically, they're respecting themselves more than people in my profession might be respecting the people they're working on. I can see that. Right. I think that's probably accurate. If I'm in danger and I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to be the first one to be like, yeah, I don't know how to do this, and I'm not going to do it until you tell me how. But when you look at me like I'm supposed to know something and it's to somebody else, as bad as it sounds, I might be like, no problem, I'll get that taken care of.
Well, it could explain why.
How do we do this again? Was it his right leg or left leg?
Just take them both.
Their leg? I don't know. It could explain why my mother, because she has to take a lot of shots for medicine and blood work, she says like all the time with the nurses or whatever, they jab her arm like 6 or 7 times to find a vein. That could be like they're new at the job. They're like, oh, I know what I'm doing.
So that I gotta take a stance on that one.
Okay, go ahead.
I only learned by stabbing at people 6 or 7 times in one go. For one, so you have to learn somewhere. But for two, even now, I'm considered one of the more experienced in the go-to people for when people can't get IV lines. I still have not necessarily just bad days on very easy people, quote unquote, like you're an easy stick.
Right.
I still have my bad days on an easy stick. It happens sometimes, but still sometimes there's people who are difficult to get. Who it doesn't matter how qualified and good you are at doing it, it might take a couple tries to get it done. I mean, that's just like the nature of
I'm not saying that it's necessarily easy, but I don't know. Like
I don't know when people I've learned in my days in the emergency department, but people complain about ridiculous things.
Everything.
Okay.
You know the number one complaint I get in the emergency department?
Shints.
Shints is number 2, but anyways, good guess, Mike. Shints number 2.
Okay, well, so what is it?
Take a guess. I'd love to see a guess and see how close you even come.
My number one good complaint would probably be time. Like, oh, it took so long before I even got
that would definitely be mine.
Makes a lot of sense. I would put that as number 2 or number 3.
What happened to Shints?
Shints is the other one. It swaps back and forth. But what do you think the number one complaint about emergency department? Food, number 1. That is by far the number one complaint anybody ever has in the emergency department. Food.
But I know why.
Why?
Because when they make food, they have to make large quantities that would be...
No, it's not that they don't... It's not that they don't like the taste of the food. It's that I don't give them food. They'll be sitting there in there because their stomach hurts. My stomach's hurt for days. I haven't been able to eat. That's why I'm here in the emergency department. Give me a sandwich. First thing out of people's mouths. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, the concept of emergency is completely different to everybody. But that is, like, working in food service at McDonald's, I've had people try to fist fight me on numerous occasions because they're angry about food. In the emergency department, with people dying, the only time I've had people try to fist fight me was over food. I mean, the world revolves around food. It's crazy.
It's pretty nuts.
It's. I mean, have you ever been to the emergency department?
I've been only once. I had a fish hook in my thumb, but that's about it.
Mike?
It was life and death, though. Life and death. I was eating a sandwich, though.
But Mike?
Couple times.
Now, did you ever ask for food?
No.
Did it even cross your mind to ask for food
no.
while you were
well,
there?
And especially the most recent time was when you can't really see it on camera. Well, maybe a little bit. A piece of steel went through my, cheek.
Doesn't that make you want to eat? Steel in the cheek?
It didn't at all. In fact, to this day, I'm a lot less of a fan of cottage cheese and mashed potatoes than I was before, because that was all I could eat for actually...
Was it because of a new guy saying he knew what he was doing and he jammed a piece of steel in your cheek?
No, this was back when I was, doing the work out in the yard, and it was just kind of a freak accident sort of thing. But it did go all the way through my cheek, just part of it, like a small amount went all the way through. So I went in and told him what happened, and whatever. Long story short, I think what happened is it got lost in the shuffle because they initially it bled a whole lot. I was covered in blood, but because it happened at work, like at 2:00 on a Friday, they tried to send me through like the work services portion of the hospital. And they thought it was too serious to mess with. So there was kind of this, they couldn't decide whether to keep me on the, the workers part of the hospital or send me to the emergency room. Well, anyways, that went on for a long time. They ended up sending me to emergency. They got me in emergency and just kind of stitched it up and sent me on my way. Well, like a month later, it was still really swollen and hurt. So they sent me back in. And they took an x-ray, and they sewed the steel into my face.
Oh, nice.
Nobody ever did an x-ray to see if it was out of there. So then they had to take me back in and knock me.
Well, you're lucky. That could have been really serious.
So who paid for that?
It was all, not me. I never saw a dime of the bill. I assume it was covered like in workman's comp type stuff.
Right. You could probably made a lot of money if you sued. Not that saying that you should have. I'm just saying.
Not enough to retire on. Like, the thought crossed my mind, but I mean, what did it really do to me, in the long run? I got a small cut.
Made you hate cottage cheese forever.
And that is, you might have really loved cottage cheese beforehand. That's at least a $10,000 fine right there.
Yeah.
Well, actually, talking about that, how do you feel about people suing for medical care, especially like something like what happened to Mike? It's superficial, but that's sort of malpractice, like there.
In a way, I would say that sewing a piece of metal into somebody's cheek is probably, especially at the outset of it, very egregious.
Right.
However, working in that type of environment, I could completely see a doctor with, I got this guy I'm doing CPR on, I got this guy who's about to lose his leg, and I got this guy who's in septic shock over here. Let me sew up this dude's cheek real quick, get him out of here and on his way, not have to deal with him, get him, so he doesn't have to deal with us anymore either, so I can focus on these. So it's very a non-egregious error, but just like an oversight. I can see that as well, just from having been there. And I know that sounds horrible to people who are listening to this, but it's literally trying to help you out as well as help us out. You're the least injured person here. Let's go through. Let
me just throw out one thing. I don't know if you've seen Batman, but the Joker got his mouth got open too. And you saw the results of that.
I did.
There is some results of not being careful.
And I have to say, ever since this happened, I've thought about becoming a supervillain, but I haven't crossed the threshold yet.
So I actually, yesterday when I was at work, ironically, speaking of this topic, not that this is the first time it's happened, just the most fresh one in my mind, I went out and grabbed a guy who was waiting in the waiting room, and I knew he was there for like chest pain and shortness of breath, and I went out and got him, and I said, "Hey, sir, I'm going to go take you back to the room so we can keep a closer look on you and put you on a cardiac monitor." And this girl was right next to him, and she goes, Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I was like, I'm taking this gentleman back to a room now. And she heard me say all this to him. I literally said, I'm going to take you back and put you on this cardiac monitor, to make sure we can keep a closer eye on you. And she goes, No. I was here first. And I said, Miss, this has nothing to do with whether you were here first or not. It has to do with the fact that you're not as sick as him, and I need to keep a closer eye on him. And as I was just walking away, because I've said it so many times, I just kind of said it in like passing as I was going, and she was like, that ain't fair. That's not the way that this should be. That's not the way that this should be. And I was like, are you serious? As I heard like the doors to the lobby shut as I was getting this guy in there, I was like, are you serious? Like, people really think that it's because anybody who goes to the emergency department, it's their worst reason to be there, whether it's really that bad or not. They think they're worse than everybody else is, and it makes it very difficult because there really is a level of who's more important. Mike's cheek, you could have lived another 2 days or so at least with that metal in your cheek.
I almost didn't even go in. I mean, really, I was that close. I had stuff to do. It was Friday afternoon.
2 days to live.
Yeah, this was literally Friday afternoon.
You should have gone
the
in
last thing I had to do for
3
the
a.m.
weekend.
Sunday is what you should have done, because that you'd be in and out of there, I swear to God.
You should have waited until Monday and then took the whole week off to get your cheeks on.
Don't ever go to the emergency department on Monday. You know what the busiest days of the week in the ER are? Mondays and Tuesdays. Mondays
they want days off
busiest
work too.
By far, and there's a number of reasons for that. But what is your thought why that would be the busiest day?
People mess themselves up over the weekend and wait to go till Monday so they can miss work.
That's one very common one.
They're so drunk on Friday night they don't realize there's an emergency until Monday.
That's
they
actually
have to sober up.
That's not as uncommon as you would think of saying that as a joke. That actually does happen. It might not be a complete drunkenness from Friday till Monday, but it could happen.
Actually, it's probably a lot of people trying to get out like on work-related causes too.
Some of it's that people who called into work on Friday now need a work excuse and they go to get it on Monday. No, go for it. I'd like to hear.
My second guess is they're really hungry and they want to complain about food.
Some of it is that, actually. But a lot of it is people who get sick over the weekend who try to do the right thing. And they're like, this isn't an emergency department related situation. Let me just wait till Monday and call my doctor and get an appointment with my doctor. And the doctor says, oh, I'll see you next Tuesday. And they have no other choice at that point. So much stuff shuts down on the weekends that it forces all the reasons, the selfish reasons as well as the unselfish reasons, into the emergency department at the same time, that Mondays and Tuesdays are the worst days you ever want to go to the ER.
So would you be more for a kind of healthcare where they encourage people to come on the weekends
to the ER?
Or not to,
I wish they had more clinics open on the weekends. Right. Your late night clinics that are late night until 9 p.m. What kind of late night is that crap? It's only 4 hours later than the doctor's office is open.
Actually,
you need a way late night clinic, and you need weekend clinics as well. That's what's supposed to just help decompress emergency departments, is having places people to go because when you don't have another option, that's where you go, is the ER. That's what you're supposed to do. Yeah. And the problem is there should be other options at other times.
Well, actually, while you complain about this, let me tell you about Japan. Because this is a little bit, their hospital situation on the weekends is a little bit trickier. So
do the hospitals close down on the weekends as well?
Well, my wife, we needed to go in for an emergency. She was feeling really sick one day. And basically what we found out is on the weekends, most hospitals closed down, except for one hospital during rotation. Will stay open for emergency care. So, not being a native speaker, we had to get our friend to help call the hospitals to find out which hospital was open so we could go to the emergency room.
Wow, how busy was it?
Actually, it wasn't really that busy at all. But Japan has universal health care, so they probably go whenever they're really sick.
Hey kids, want to follow us on social media? Like the What Do We Know Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter at WDWKpodcast. Email us at WDWKpodcast@gmail.com. Or find us at our home on the interwebs, WDWKpodcast.com.